for joining me. I'm so excited to be talking with you guys today. I've been telling all my friends and my family that I've been chatting with about the upcoming holidays. Hey, tune into my episode tonight because we have a special crew that's going to be on. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we hop into questions, which is what everybody's here for, let's do some quick introductions. So, welcome everyone to Red Planet Live. I'm your host, Ashton Zeth. And I'm elated to be hosting the Mars Society's podcast and leading the conversation about human exploration of the universe and the future settlement of Mars. As a longtime space enthusiast, I am passionate about STEM education and making humanity an interplanetary species. Thank you everyone for joining today and supporting Red Planet Live. So today's conversation is focused on Crew 15 of the Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, located on Devon Island in Canada, just 900 miles from the North Pole. The crew consists of a multinational team from the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States. We spent almost 2 weeks working to repair and upgrade the station, with the remaining days used to focus on a program of sustained geological and microbiological exploration while operating under Mars mission constraints. Since the early 2000s, simulations on Devon Island have provided unmatched value in helping humans prepare to explore the red planet because of its isolation and Mars-like environment conditions. So let's meet the crew. Starting with our commander, Andrew Wheeler, served as the crew commander. Andrew is a senior geologist for a geology, surveying, and engineering consultancy, supervising exploratory drilling programs and mentoring graduate and junior geologists on site. Andrew has served as a member for Crew 214 and 215 at the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah in 2019, commanding 215, and will be commander again for Crew 291 at MDRS in early 2024. He has a degree in applied geology, postgraduate diplomas in earth science and education, and collaborates in research into Martian geology. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate being here to speak with all your followers.
We're looking forward to the conversation. Next up, we have Executive Officer and Crew Scientist, Terry Trevino. Terry is the founder of Space for All, a nonprofit organization that focuses on developing new space technologies to enable massive growth and accelerate the development in existing and entirely new space industries. A trained aerospace scientist, he is also the co-founder of Magnetospace, a company that aims to determine best practices and methodologies required for true electromagnetic environment. Terry has a BA in political science and economics, a master's in aerospace science and air and space operations technology, and is currently a PhD student for space studies, concentrating on human factors research. Hi, Terry. Thanks for being here as well. And we have our mission lead and crew scientist, which is Olivia Drayson. Olivia is a PhD candidate in environmental toxicology at the University of California, Irvine, researching the effects of radiation on the brain. Originally from London, she holds a Bachelor of Science in Physics from Oxford and a Master's of Science in Aerospace Engineering. Her current research involves studying a novel radiotherapy technique called FLASH, which is great for Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, that can spare cancer patients from the effects of damage to healthy tissue. Olivia is also collaborating with the space medicine team of the European Space Agency on a project investigating the radiation risk to astronauts on future lunar and Mars missions. Olivia is also an avid hiker, and she has trekked with an expedition to a Mount Everest base camp. Olivia, so glad you could be here today.
Thank you, Ashton. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excited. And next up, we have one of our crew engineers, Andy Greco. Andy serves as an engineering team lead involved in the final assembly of Boeing's 737 MAX airplane in Seattle. In addition, he worked as an aerodynamics engineer and an airport compatibility engineer for Boeing in California, concentrating on airplane limitations and certification. Andy was also a lead performance engineer for General Electric's wind turbine operation, focusing on composite structural damage evaluation and repair. He has a BS in Aerospace Engineering, an Associate of Science degree in Aviation Science, and is currently halfway through a master's degree in Space Systems from Florida Institute of Technology. Andy, so glad you could be here today. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Ashton.
Excited for our conversation. And last but not least, we have the Health and Safety Officer and Crew Engineer, Caleb Poole. Caleb is a systems engineer with Stoke Space Technologies in Seattle, which is building a fully reusable rocket. He previously worked for Boeing in a variety of spacecraft engineering roles. Caleb has a Bachelor of Science degrees in Mechanical Engineering and Mathematics, and a Master's in Mechanical Engineering with a strong space emphasis and concentration in dynamics and controls. In addition, he's a certified firefighter, an EMT, and a certified private pilot. He also holds 2 patents and enjoys mountaineering and kite surfing. Caleb, also so happy you could be here with us today.
Delighted to be here. And
I gotta say, you guys are some of the, as a collective, the amount of degrees and education behind this crew is really impressive. You guys are making me a little intimidated right now, but so excited to talk with you all and can't wait to kick off our conversation. And so typically for Red Planet Live, we start each episode with a quick question of the day. And so in the spirit of the Martian movie, which we had talked about previously when we synced, I thought let's take some inspiration from that for today's question, which is, if you could only take one album on a trip to Mars, what would that album be? None of these iPhones, iPods, endless, discography. You've only got one album that you can take with you. What's that album going to be? All right, Andrew.
Grateful Dead's Live from the Mars Hotel.
I love it. That is such a good answer. All right. Anybody else? What do we got? What's your one album?
Folia Do by Fall Out Boy.
I like it. Okay, we got an alternative right here. Okay. Terry, what you got?
I like classical music. So Michelle McLaughlin, she's from Ireland. Her piano movements are spectacular.
Love that we have a wide range of musical interests here. Okay. Olivia, Caleb, what's your album?
Probably have to go back to the 80s or so, maybe the Men at Work Land Down Under album.
Oh, love it. Okay. That is also a good choice. My mom would agree with you on that one. And Olivia, what's yours?
Yeah, I also got to go retro with Fleetwood Mac Rumors, probably.
Oh, man, you guys all had great choices. I know I sprung this question on you, so you had really no time to prepare. And I got to say, everybody had great choices. I would say for my own, it would probably be the Goo Goo Dolls Greatest Hits album. I can't pick just one, so I want the greatest hits so I can get a little bit of everything. So yeah, mine would be Goo Goo Dolls. Great answers, guys. Before we dive into questions, which is really, the focus of today's conversation is a question and answer section. I want to remind all of our guests, anybody that's listening today, please put your questions that you have for the crew into the chat. We will be taking those questions throughout. So yeah, anything that you want to know of the crew, please post those. So let's get into it. I have a ton of questions for you guys. I was, like I said, telling all my friends and family, hey, listen to today's episode. I'm speaking with a specific crew that had a very specific mission to a very isolated location. So let's dive right into that particular mission. The Crew 15, you guys went to Flashline, Mars Arctic Research Station up in Devon Island. Can you give just a quick overview of the primary objectives of your mission to FMars on Devon Island? What was your purpose for going there?
I'll begin. The primary focus was to refurbish the habitat. It hadn't been occupied for approximately 6 years, which is equivalent to 3 Mars years. That it was an opportunity to just see how it would handle the cold conditions and the freeze-thaw conditions up there. So our task was to evaluate the hab inside and out, what needed to be replaced, then we would replace it with what we had on hand. What was damaged, we would remove, and then once it became habitable, then we were to then move inside and carry out a simulated Mars exploration program. the exploration program involving geology, exobiology, and any other observations that we could make in the process of going through those biological and geological expeditions that we had. So.
Okay. And so it sounds like the last crew to the station was in 2017. And so obviously part of your objective was to repair and upgrade the station. When you arrived, what was the condition of the station like?
Somebody else.
Yeah, it was
Go ahead,
clearly
Jerry.
unused.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a bit more than unused. I think Andy and Caleb were the first to go inside and have a look at it. So either of them, if they can describe what they saw.
Yeah, initially it was sound structurally. It's a very robust design and construction, so we didn't really have any issues with that. But it being uncrewed for so long, it did have some issues such as mold and mildew growth, and generally just things, tools, equipment that had been unused for many years had to be either removed or fixed, repaired.
Okay. And so when I heard a little story, so I'm going to ask you guys to tell it. You guys ate some chocolate that may not have been necessarily the freshest. Where was this chocolate from? How long had it been there? Did it taste
It didn't have
good?
a date. It did not have a date on it. So
There was no bad date on it.
So
But-
unsure. Okay.
Yeah, we
But-
were experimenting a bit with. There had been a lot of food left over by previous crews that varied from dried pasta and pre-prepared meals, boil-in-the-bag meals, and some chocolate. And I wasn't as adventurous as some of the other crew members in tasting it. But
Yes, I was
Yeah,
expendable,
okay.
so I tried it all. The chocolate actually came from a container that had 2017 on the outside of the container. So that was the presumption that it was at least 6 years old. And it was tasty. It was in good condition, and it was very edible. And we left
Yeah.
half of it behind because we ate the other half. So,
Chocolate's chocolate. It always tastes good, right?
absolutely.
All right. Okay. So the chocolate was good, but you tried a bunch of other things. What were some of the other foods that were left over that you were adventurous enough to try, Andrew?
Well, as Olivia said, there were pasta and other food that had been prepared for meals, progressive meals by previous crews, but they had left that behind. So that couldn't be used. That was jettisoned and incinerated. But there were vacuum sealed food packets, and there was one particular supply that came from 2004, and I believe it was Norwegian Army rations, and they were. Well, I was the only one that tried it. As I said, I was expendable, being the old fellow, and so it was quite tasty. There was nothing. It appeared to be perfectly edible, and I'm still here, so it was.
Live to tell the tale.
Are you
Okay.
talking about those green bags, Andrew? Those
Yes,
green
That's what
I
the
would-
greenbacks were.
Yeah, I
That's-
tried one of those
that's
too. So.
Oh, you did?
We're
Excellent.
still here.
Yeah.
Okay. So y'all survived. Food wasn't, that bad, but it sounded like you guys brought a lot of, your food and your supplies with you ahead of time. So that was not your only source of nutrition. You had some as well, not the old stuff.
Oh yeah.
Had to bring all that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Hey, just real quick, Ash, when we landed, the planes took off. You knew it was just us. I think Olivia and I were walking up with Andrew after the lads had already been there for a few hours, actually. And my first thought was, man, I'm kind of hungry. And we went right to it. We spent the night outside for several nights as we were readying the research station for us to ingress and to stay. But I have to say, I was hungry immediately. And Caleb had this camp set up that was just ready to go. We had hot food it was hours. We had hot food. So it was, thankfully, Caleb, you brought your Whisper Light. That was awesome.
I'll just say I know Olivia and others have backgrounds in camping and other things, but surviving in extreme environments, whether that's on mountaintops or other places, has a lot of parallels with Mars.
And the number one concern that I hear from other crews I've talked to is always food. That's the one thing that people are like, we have to get this right. Otherwise, the mission is going to be really unenjoyable. So sounds like food was taken care of. Caleb had food ready to go within a couple hours. So you guys didn't starve. And for the most part, we're eating good while you were there. I promise I won't ask, too many questions about your food. But this crew, you guys are made up of members from various countries. I'm curious, and I'm sure that others are as well. How was your crew formed? What was the selection process like for you guys all coming together to go on this mission?
I'll begin with that one. When the announcement came out in December 2022, a week later, I was approached by a member of the Mars Society Australia because I hadn't seen that announcement, and he suggested that I should apply for that because I had experience at MDRS and also running and being involved in exploration camps in very remote locations, mostly in Australia, but also in Central Asia, in Mongolia, and Southern Africa, in Mozambique. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea. I'll try that and see what happens. So I was simply invited to apply as an exploration geologist for our FMars position.
Yeah, I can kind of continue on that. It was we didn't pull names out of the hat, although that probably would have been a great idea. We were very lucky. I think this crew, I'm pointing this way. I don't know how everybody else is seeing this, but it was the perfect crew. I've been on several analog missions. I can tell you we had everything checked. The engineering team were brilliant. They to do what they did in the number of minutes and hours to have us up and running was spectacular. Olivia was amazing in terms of pulling all of our science together, and plus she and I had to don these hazmat suits so that we could go upstairs and take mold and scrape it in some weird places. But end of the day, it really didn't matter how we were picked. It was how we came together. I think that to me is a more important event out of that. Now, I can say in December of 21, as James was being selected for the position of executive director, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And we wore those for, I think, 3 days straight. Is that right, Olivia?
Yeah, the same one as well, because we didn't have that many. But...
We only had the one. Didn't smell bad, though. I don't think. Anyway, we started talking about FMars. Is difficult to say. We started talking about Flashline Mars in 21 and started planning it. And it was just lucky the way we all came together. I think I don't know, the chemistry was really spectacular in my opinion. But
Andy, I want to hear your perspective as well, because I know that I remember you saying you were like, oh, I'm just going to apply and see what happens. And here you are, you're on a podcast and we're talking about your experience. What was it like for you applying for this mission?
Yeah, I actually deleted the email at first. And then a couple hours later, I was thinking about it. And I, up to that point, I hadn't really considered doing anything like this. But I said, what the heck, I'm kind of mid-career engineer now. Maybe I have some experience that will help the crew and the mission. And I spent some time writing up a resume and a cover letter, and that was kind of it for the application process, kind of trying to explain why I wanted to be a part of this expedition. And it was an email and a phone call with James Burke, and a couple calls later and some interviews, and one thing led to another. And I told myself that I wasn't going to be the one to say no as the process went along. I would let somebody else say, no, you're not qualified for that. But eventually got to the point where I was like, oops, I'm about to meet my crew members. And here we go.
No turning back now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Olivia, what was that like for you for the process of applying and joining this mission?
Yeah, no, I think it was very similar with Andy because we were brought in towards the end of the crew assembly. So I think at that point they had a missing spot for a scientist, and I helped fill that gap. But yeah, when I first got the email, I initially thought that it was a crazy thing to apply to, and I wasn't sure whether I would do it. And then when I did, I thought, oh, well, there's no way I'm going to be selected, but I might as well give it a go, and maybe I'll meet some people along the way or learn about the process or learn about the Mars Society a bit more. And then it just kept going and kept going. And I was like, oh, this is actually happening. I'm going to go there. So it was an interesting experience. And yeah, I had a great time.
I'm glad to hear that. And Caleb, what about you? What was the process like for you applying?
Yeah, no, I've been contemplating things since like this since 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. And friends who I trust had recommended finding an analog mission to participate in. I'd been on the Mars Society email threads for a little while, and then saw the one in December show up, and within a few days put together the necessary information to apply. And similar story to the others, just the interview rounds and so on. Got to meet the crews and go through the preparation that led up to it.
It was that easy. So you guys all applied. You found out, hey, I'm accepted. I'm going on this mission. It's my understanding that traveling to Devon Island can be a bit of a logistical challenge. What was the travel experience like getting to this remote location?
It was quite the challenge.
Yes, it was. I'm based in Australia, so in Queensland. So I have to get from central Queensland to the capital, Brisbane, and then from Brisbane I get to Vancouver, and then Vancouver to get to Yellowknife. So Yellowknife was where we all assembled, and it took us 2 days, I think, to all of us to get there. Some arrived 2 days prior, and I think I was the last to arrive. And once you're in Yellowknife, then you have to wait for a charter flight to get you to Resolute Bay in the Canadian Arctic, and then in Resolute Bay you have to wait for the weather conditions to let you get to Devon Island itself. So the various photos that you're seeing are from the later stages, getting from Yellowknife to Resolute, and then this photograph is Resolute to Devon Island, and you're looking at Devon Island itself just there. So it was a number of days. I didn't try to total it up. I think it was about 45 hours worth of travel just to get to get to Resolute. So
yeah, it took
some
us
people
a
were
lot
closer.
of flights.
Some people were closer. They were in the United States, so it was less of an onerous journey for them.
That's Moses. Moses is the name of the plane.
Oh yeah, that's the
that was
Buffalo
nice.
Airways one. That's me and Caleb on the. That's the put-in flight. That's
First
the first
put in. That's
Yeah.
right.
into the island. Yeah.
That was crazy.
So you're preparing for your travels. You know, hey, as a crew, we're going on this mission. We're going to help prepare the station. What specific challenges were you anticipate facing during this mission? Obviously, you're in a crew, confined space, long travel to get to an isolated location. But what were some of the challenges that you were preparing for before you actually got to Devon Island?
Polar bears.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely polar bears. That was a big conversation for days, right, Olivia? We were talking about that, it seemed like.
Yeah, no, it was scary. We had to be really careful and check underneath the habitat every time we went outside. We set up a bear fence around our tents for the first few days so that if one came near, a blank would fire, so it would hopefully get scared off. But when we arrived, we saw like claw markings and places where a bear had attempted to have a snack. So it wouldn't have been outside the realm of possibility.
The bear was coming for that chocolate. Okay, so bears, polar bears was, a significant thing that you guys were planning for. Anything else? Were you guys worried about potentially like the psychological aspect of, again, being confined in a small space, isolated location, get some cabin fever? What's going to happen while we're there? What if something, happens in terms of, I think you guys were mentioning before, like not having all the supplies or the materials that you may have needed. You didn't know what you didn't know. So how are you guys preparing for those unknowns?
Caleb was awesome.
Like you said,
and Andy, it was awesome the way they came together. Go ahead, Caleb. Sorry.
Oh, sure. No worries. Just kind of broadly, there's the remoteness overall, which from supplies challenge, both food and tools and materials, meant we had to anticipate and make use of what little information we did have to try to guess what there might be and plan ahead in that regard. And as far as food goes, planning out the caloric and variety kinds of needs. And then also just energy and transportation. So generators, finding fuel for those, and then critical equipment and tools for maintenance, planning ahead in that regard and bringing fuel with us. And then as far as transportation goes, we weren't quite sure if the ATVs that were there already would be adequate. And so took the measure of bringing some small new ones with us as backup, and those proved to be useful right away. And then we were able to get the older ones up and running, these green ones here.
So what were some of your EVAs like? We can see in that photo that was just shared, you're on the ATVs, you're in your suits. What were you guys doing outside of the hab?
A lot.
I think that's a cue for you, Olivia.
That's for me. Oh yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
We crammed in so many EVAs. We really loved them. Terry and I were mainly on EVAs together with someone with the gun on bear watch. And our goal was looking for water sources. So we tried to reach the Horton River, which is quite close to us and has some creeks and tributaries that we were using as a water source. So we were trying to follow those creeks to the source of the river so that we could collect samples and to take back to the lab to study, and also look for any other signs of life that we thought interesting. We stumbled across a couple of algal mats with some cyanobacteria in them, which really was amazing to see, this green blob in the middle of just rocks. Yeah, there's a picture of us taking a sample from that too. So that was our main goal. And then Andrew took the engineers out on mainly the geological EVAs. So you were hunting down things like the hydrothermal chimney, which we have a video of somewhere, and the stromatolites and the patterned ground. And I think we all were able to make really good progress. We weren't able to reach the river because there was one where we were just too exhausted and starting to overheat. And so we had to make the call to turn around before we got there. But I think we got a lot out of those EVAs from both the science point of view and also from understanding to the terrain and seeing what the limits of the ATVs and our own personal limits in those suits were.
Yeah. Let's see if we can play that video. So the video that you're referencing, I want to make sure we get the right.
Excellent.
That's
it.
I love that video.
Video of the actual hydrothermal chimney that we believe is a hydrothermal chimney. And what Caleb was doing was he was videoing me doing the videoing. So it was my record as well as our record that we were collecting on that particular occasion. So redundancy of the exploration that we're doing was something that we were looking at, so that we would be able to have the data there with us, and then have something in case we lost that data that we could reestablish what the data that we had. So that was just a fun episode of data collection redundancy in that case. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun video to watch. Olivia, I wanted to ask you specifically. So at the Mars Society Convention, you were sharing some of your research from the mission. can you give us a summary of the information that you presented at the convention?
Yeah, absolutely. So on top of the geological and biological studies that we were conducting, I also wanted to include some human factors research, given that we were simulating the isolation and confinement that we would do on a Mars mission. So we partnered with a couple of researchers at the American Public University System, Lex Lojek and Scott Van Hoy. And they had some ongoing projects that were studying psychology of analog astronauts. And so we were able to extend it to cover our mission so that we could contribute to these larger projects and also gain some interesting information from this unique environment. So the first project with Lex Lojek was using these Garmin wearable monitors to measure stress by measuring heart rate variability. So we were wearing them before and during and after the mission and seeing how our stress levels were changing. And then also we conducted some focused breathing sessions every day during the simulation, which would be about 10 minutes. And we wanted to see if our stress would reduce as soon as we conducted these, and if the days in which we were doing focused breathing were any more or less stressful than any other days. And we could see that with the majority of the crew members, you could see a significant drop in stress from before and immediately after the focused breathing. So this could be a useful countermeasure to use on space missions. And then the second project that I presented with Scott Van Hoy was a couple of questionnaires that we were completed. So we completed these on a weekly basis in the lead up, during, and after the mission. One of them was a psychological and behavioral questionnaire that was evaluating our mood, our stress, also feelings of empathy and motivation and risk-taking during the mission. And then the second one was a facial emotion recognition questionnaire, where we had a series of pictures of people making different face expressions. And then we had to try and select which emotion we thought was being expressed by the person. And the hypothesis behind that is that the more stressed you are, this could create an impairment in your ability to judge emotions of other people. And this would have a profound effect on crew dynamics if this is a huge impact for astronaut crews. So it was a really interesting study to do and very important to see how the isolation and confinement, on top of being in this incredibly remote and unique environment, would have on crew psychology.
Yeah. Okay. That was super interesting. I remember watching your presentation and saying that seems to make sense that the stress level would go down after those breathing exercises. And like you said, this could be really useful for future lunar and Mars missions. Would everybody, all the rest of the crew members, would you guys all agree that it was a stressful situation being on this mission, and did or did not, did the breathing exercises help reduce that stress?
Probably
Terry?
different kind of stress.
Yeah, I was stressed here and there, but yeah. Only because there are these weird stones everywhere you walked outside of the habitat, and you could just fall and crush your face or your head. But other than that, no. I mean, the bears, they were around. You could see them. I was more worried about inside the habitat, just making sure we were safe. I was not this health and safety officer. That was Caleb, and Caleb can really speak to this. But I was, the only thing I was stressed about was injuries.
Yeah. Andy, did you find it pretty stressful?
The things I was stressed about is not the normal stuff I'm usually stressed about at work. But yeah, like, you don't think about polar bears, but you have to have a buddy system when you're going outside. And especially on EVA, you have the bear watch, the third person. And I noticed I had an internal timer going off that said, hey, now's the time to prairie dog and look around and look over your shoulder just to make sure that nothing big and furry is headed your way.
Always got to stay on high alert. Caleb, what about you as the health and safety officer? How are you helping the crew to manage their stress?
That's interesting angle to consider it from, because I think we mostly as a crew focused more on what we needed to get done and what kind of the next tasks were, just prioritization problem solving, and didn't directly, other than the study, see much of a need to contend with stress head on. Yeah, and as a health and safety officer, didn't make that so much a focus as quality of life and life safety.
Sure.
Hey, Ash, we had this
Yeah.
this door entry. I have to tell everybody this story
Oh, no.
because we all crushed our head on this door entry. So when you open the the main door, it's kind of low. It's kind of, it's a very good pretend.
Hatch.
Yes, exactly. And so you open it, and then I think day one, I'm pretty sure I hit the top of my head and, caused a small injury. I know that everybody else had probably off and on. Maybe Andrew did because he knew. But anyway, that was the only thing I thought was, kind of a regular injury that we all had. Other than
and when working on the roof, we took every precaution we could to be properly secured and belayed.
Is there any? There it is. Oh,
great.
look at that. That's a brilliant image. Wow. And that's that's Andy is actually there. He's got a harness on, and he's belaying Caleb at the very top there, who's also tied in several places on the antenna. But you guys being up there, I was like, oh, it was fine. It was amazing.
So that's where the stress came from.
I had no stress. I had no stress at all. Everybody did their jobs, and they accumulated all the stress of doing the work. So I just sat back and watched them.
Pointed.
Cope with
Do this.
all of it.
Do that.
As any good commander would. Andrew, I have a specific audience question for you. What are some specifics regarding the geological environment for someone hoping to participate in a future FMars mission?
Okay, so Devon Island is in the Canadian Arctic archipelago. That area is mostly sedimentary rocks, and that is north of the Canadian Shield, which are igneous rocks that provided a lot of the sediment for those islands that form up the archipelago. So on Devon Island itself, it's a Devonian in age, which is just a fluke that Devon Island is a Devonian in age, but there are limestones and fossil reefs from the Devonian that form the geology at the surface at the moment on Devon Island. So you can expect to see limestone with coral fossils and with there are also things that we were looking for specifically that were older than Devonian age, which are stromatolites, which are algal mats that are fossilized, and they're evidence for life. In Australia, we have stromatolites dating back more than 3,000 million years. So that is something that conceivably could be on Mars. So part of the geological expeditions that we were doing there. Okay, so yes, you can see in that photograph, you can see a coral fossil there in the foreground. And we were looking for limestone where the Mars habitat is on Haynes Ridge. It's a lot of it, the limestone has been dolomitized. So dolomite, it dominates that Haynes Ridge where the habitat is. And around that area, if you were looking for the limestones using the hydrochloric acid test that we tried to use, it wouldn't work because it's been dolomitized and there are dolomites there. So we couldn't do that. We were expecting to see the fizz that you would get from putting hydrochloric acid on limestones. Being calcium carbonate, it releases CO2. But the dolomite being a magnesium calcium carbonate, it doesn't react like that. So that was a disappointment. We wanted to demonstrate that to one of the schools that we had a link with whilst we were on site, but we couldn't do that. So
we did find the one stromatolite, and then what was that stone you found that was that yellowy, really hard stone? What was that one?
Impact.
Yeah. So that's part of what we see there. We see the limestone from the Devonian. We see that it's been dolomitized, which is a alteration, a weathering alteration product. We also had an impact crater, which is why the HAB was there, from 23 million years ago, and we were looking for evidence of that impact as well. And that's looking into the crater itself from the Haynes Ridge where the habitat is. We were finding what I believe was ejecta breccia from the impact, which appear bright yellow, and the once you break that open and look at it, it's a rock that's all mashed up. It's highly fractured. It's held together because it's reformed after being heated from the impact, but it's a melange. It's just a mess inside, and that's what we were looking for. We were finding them in very odd places where we weren't expecting to see them, and that was once everybody had got their eyes adapted to looking for that, we were finding those yellow rocks everywhere. So we also came across the biological evidence, the stromatolites, which I think, Terry, you found that one on the way.
I tripped on it.
Yeah. Don't tell them that.
Well, I mean, I didn't know what I was looking for. You were like, "What's that?" And you go, "You found one." I went, "Okay."
Yeah. And then not very far away, Olivia came across another sedimentary rock that had evidence of worm burrows. So we were finding flora evidence in the stromatolites as well as fauna evidence in the worm burrows that had been preserved. So geologically, it's probably not as diverse as it could be, but the science that you can do there is just phenomenal with that very, very limited range of rocks. And the main advantage is there's no vegetation to get in the way of you looking at the rocks.
Not a tree to be seen. Someone said something. Except for the little bitty 2-inch trees that grow out.
Yeah, there was a flower.
That's right. The Arctic willows, they don't grow up, they grow along. So they creep along the ground, but they're actually willows.
Those are the Arctic poppies. Those are the Arctic poppies. They're beautiful. Oh, the power's back on. Yay. The power's been out in San Francisco, which is why I'm in my car. So anyway.
Okay, so there, that's basically the geology around the area.
So along those lines, we have a question, an environmental question. What were the temperatures during your mission?
Okay, I'll continue with that.
Warm.
So in that location, we had daylight for 24 hours. The sun was up at midday and at midnight. So when the sun was at the midday location, we were getting daytime temperatures between 11 degrees Celsius and 15 degrees Celsius, according to Terry's thermometer. And when we were at the midnight time, when the sun was at the lowest, we were getting down to 5 degrees Celsius and as warm as 8 degrees Celsius. And that was inside the HAB. So outside, it would have been a little bit colder. We were expecting the midday temperatures to be around about 2 to 0 Celsius, and the midnight temperatures around about -5 to -8. And we never experienced that. We had, because it was the absolute height of summer up there in the Arctic, we had those, and we had beautiful blue skies. It was
pretty.
It was with wispy clouds and it was gentle breezes. We were expecting thick rain clouds and sleet and howling winds, but the wind seemed to be blowing towards the glacier at the end of Devon Island rather than from the glacier on Devon Island.
Mhm.
Hey, Ash. There's a bunch of comments about the FMars thing, and I know we talked about it. So
We did.
we will be changing that name. That name is for sale. So if anybody wants to jump in and pay some money for that, it's available for sale. FMars means Flashline Mars. Flashline is an internet company that failed, or was actually they didn't fail. They were.
Oops.
Oh, did we lose him?
No.
Oh, I'll carry on for Terry if we've lost him.
There we go. We'll come back.
Yeah. The acronym stands for the Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, and I don't know all the details of Flashline's history, which Terry's about to fill us in on.
Yeah, they were
Terry.
bought by somebody.
Yeah, the naming rights have long since expired, so no longer Flashline. It's whoever will buy it next. The naming rights, that is.
Right, the naming rights. So that's where the FMars acronym comes from, the Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station. And yeah, I know we have had conversations about that a couple times, specifically when we saw each other at the Mars Society conference. We talked about it as well. So yeah, if there's any sponsors out there that want to name an analog mission research station in the Arctic, there is an opportunity. Contact
The first permanent Mars Arctic Research Station.
So if you've got a sponsor in mind, reach out to the Mars Society, www.marssociety.org. I'm sure they will be happy to talk with you about the naming rights for the Arctic Station. So along those lines, thinking about, the research station, obviously we've talked about it. It's in an isolated location. Some of the things that I was thinking about, we get questions from those that are listening, specifically for the analog astronauts. They want to know, how are you preparing? What is the environment like when you get there? What's the crew dynamics? And something that I'm always curious about is, given kind of the unpredictable nature of an Arctic environment, how did the crew prepare for potential unforeseen circumstances, preparing for emergencies? What was that process like?
I can talk a bit about that. We did a lot of communication ahead of time, especially me and Caleb. We talked through the first hours and days and really ground out what the process was going to be, to make sure that we did everything in a particular order. There were certain things that needed to happen. Like from a broad perspective, the HAB needs to be operational for us to do any science. So we had to focus on that first. So the preparation was a lot of researching into the Mars Society's archives for photos and videos and crew reports and inventory lists, and just pouring through all that information and trying to learn as much as we could ahead of time. And that kind of informed how we were going to do what particular tasks. When we got those tasks in order, we needed to define what our bill of materials were going to be to complete those tasks. And we can't bring everything with us that we need. We have to make some assumptions about what's going to be there. Hopefully they're not assumptions. Hopefully we know what is up there. But what we were facing was equipment that had not been used for at least 5 years. So you might have, let's say, a power drill up there, but maybe with the humidity, that power drill is all rusted out. And you can't guarantee that it's going to be operational anymore. So if there were things that we identified that were safety or mission goal critical, some of those things we brought duplicates of and ended up with extra equipment, but it guaranteed that we were going to get those important things completed.
That's great. Yeah, you got to be prepared for anything. Let's see, from Caleb, health and safety officer, from your perspective, how are you preparing also for any potential emergencies?
Well, from the medical emergency standpoint, crew members breathe and assess risks and so on. We prepared by setting up evacuation insurance plans and agreeing what different notifications might look like, and then preparing for potential response to emergencies. Also brought a kit with us and assembled a collection of the gear that, combined with several crew members' skills, including my own, were able to make use of in the event of an emergency that might allow preserving somebody's immediate life or allowing them to be stabilized until transport to a more suitable facility.
Yeah, gotta always be prepared there. So in terms of your overall mission, you know, a lot of the people that are listening in and people that, you know, are interested in the Mars Society and obviously our podcast and, you know, are interested in analog missions, what advice would you give to someone that's considering doing an analog mission like this?
Just go.
Just go.
Yes, absolutely. Just get as much experience as you can across a range of things. Go hiking, learn first aid, take science courses, take engineering courses, learn how to program computers.
Work on your car.
Yeah.
Fix a bicycle, fix up your house, that sort of thing.
Understand how things work and build new things.
That's right. And don't do it in isolation. Do it with people, with friends, with people you haven't met before. So you learn they learn how to use your skills and you learn how to use their skills. And that's something that's important, particularly if you've got the first time you meet the people you'll be working with in an analog situation is when you arrive. Then you need to be able to very quickly work out exactly what they know and let them do their job and not get in the way. I mean, that's the role of the commander, as far as I was concerned, was the people that are around me know what they're doing. They're very good at what they're doing, and it would be silly of me to get in their way and stop them doing it. So that's it. You guys know what you're doing. Go to town. Show us how it's done. So that would be our advice, would be to get as much life experience across a broad range of things and then use that to join in with, for example, the Mars Society in their analog research work.
Yeah,
Mars Society is always
one thing. I thought the environment there was, because there wasn't a plane to be seen, there wasn't anything around anywhere, not other than human-centric to speak of. There wasn't a contrail. There was no noise of a helicopter or sirens in San Francisco. So one of the things that fascinated me was how quiet and peaceful it was. And because we had those few days before, just to sit on the edge of that crater rim and to just look and just focus on nothing but beauty. And it was just, we're going back. I'm going back. I know Andy and I are going to go back and try to set it all for the summertime cruise. So yeah, we're, you know, and if you're an artist, that might actually be one of the most peaceful places maybe on the planet.
All right, calling all artists. If you are interested in applying for a research mission like this, you can go to, again, www.marssociety.org. There is a link right on the homepage to apply if you're interested in becoming a crew member at Flashline or at MDRS. So yeah, check those out. And I know we're coming up on time here, so I wanted to just, you know, round the room here. What was the high and the low of your experience going on this mission for each of you individually? Your best favorite part of it and maybe your least favorite part.
I'll begin. My favorite part was just being there, just being able to, as Terry said, look out the HAB porthole and look into the crater and just see the desolation there. And I mean, Buzz Aldrin said magnificent desolation about the moon and the Apollo 11 thing, but it's a similar thing. You're there, as Terry said, looking out into the silence, and just the views were just spectacular. The lowest point was the way we left, how we had had to leave in a very, very rushed rate, and it felt bad to do that. We had gone there trying to get the HAB up and running again and clearing out the detritus of previous missions, but we ended up leaving it in probably a worse situation than we had arrived at. So that didn't gel right, as well as the reasons for having to leave so quickly as well. That was not a good thing as well. But the crew performed absolutely brilliantly at the end there. It wasn't chaotic. It was simply we did things as fast as we could, and we left things in the best condition that we could, considering the situation. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, beautiful. I thought it was perfect. You know, these people here made it amazing. Lows, I don't know. I didn't really feel we had an event, and that was it. And otherwise, what an amazing experience. And these four made it even more.
Yeah, for me, I think the highs had to be going on the EVAs, because you really got to explore the environment that much more and step into it. And stepping away from the HAB, I think, made you feel that much more isolated, but it was such a beautiful landscape that I didn't feel too lonely out there. And the lows for me was just probably towards the end of the mold cleaning, because it had been a week of being in the bunny suit, scrubbing floors and things, and I was ready to get into the simulation at that point. So
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Andy, what about you?
So I think I'll do the low and then the high, so I got something to look forward to. The low for me was maybe 4 or 5 days in, when the exhaustion started to catch up with me, because we were putting in 16-hour days of a lot of physical work, especially in the beginning there. And I think I woke up with a really bad neck ache and headache that took quite a while to go away. But the highest points, the whole mission, for me, from the engineering perspective, it was like a big playground for me. I got to go everywhere and use any tools I wanted to do, anything, and improve things, fix things, and get things running. And that was a great joy for me.
Love it. Caleb, what about you?
And well, I feel like I'm going to be copying Andy, but both in order and what I found good. But we'll start with the low. I think was experiencing some pretty substantial physical pain toward the end, caused regrettably by injury involving the incinerator. But the high was just an incredible time of getting almost the feeling, sensation of a sandbox of creativity, getting to problem solve, make things, whether it was a windsock or patching together spacesuits with a sewing machine, or even pizza. There were lots of good times and enjoyment shared by all of us.
Oh, I have the pizza photo.
All right.
I like the taco photo and the pizza photo. Those are two of my favorite, and then Crater too.
Well, that's us in Yellowknife.
Hey, there we are.
Us at the park.
That's us getting together for the first time.
We did eat a lot together. Yeah, that was nice. And a lot of weird sauces too. Olivia likes stuff from the UK, which is different.
Love to see all these images of you guys together. It sounds like, from an overall mission perspective, that you guys gelled really well together and had a great time as a crew and bonding with each other. I think that's probably a message that resonates with a lot of people that are, again, considering doing something like this. I imagine that you guys will keep in contact. Sounds like some of you are going to try to go on a future mission. So that's probably, would you guys agree, the best part about it is obviously the experience, but getting to know all the other members of your crew and having a great time with each other on this mission.
Oh, absolutely. This is the best crew.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Oh, so sweet. It warms my heart. You guys had such a good time together. Well, let's see. I see that there is A quick question about my astronaut sign.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's
I'm gonna
awesome.
post it. Shout out to my husband, Jack. This was a Christmas gift last year in anticipation for me hosting the Mars Society's podcast. So yeah, shout out Jack. There we go. That's also my Instagram handle, if you want to follow me.
I knew that.
Excellent.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and answering all of our questions. It's been great to learn about your experience and your mission and just how rewarding it was for you guys to get to go on this adventure. And sounds like you would encourage anybody else that's thinking about it to just do it, just apply.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, again, thank you so much for all of your time and participating and being such good sports with all of our questions today. Thank you, Terry, Caleb, Andrew, Olivia, and Andy for joining us today. Thank you, everybody that tuned in, that was listening. Your audience questions, those were excellent as well. Thank you to Leah and Michael, our friends at Liftport. It was such a wonderful experience to get to know you guys. Can't wait to see you all again next month. And remember, the best is yet to come. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.